So, I kind of want to cover this topic, and I am not a finance guy, an analytics guy, a guy that, I'm not the kind of person that crunches the numbers and figures out what all this means. I just kind of see things that are happening, and I think to myself, what is the reason? What are the possible outcomes? Knowing that, I might only be somewhat close to the truth, or I might have some idea of what I'm talking about. But gold hit 4,000 US dollars, and it hasn't really had this kind of movement since the 1970s. Now, during the 1970s, Nixon famously decoupled the gold from the US dollar, and since then, it went from that point onwards, it was on a downward trend through the 80s, and then in the 90s, it started to pick up again. And it hasn't, even now, hasn't recovered to the point it was in the 1970s. But for the most of my lifetime, if not all of my lifetime, the story of gold is that it barely moves up over time, and it's pretty static, as in it's used as a hedge against risk. So most people put their money into gold when they're nervous about things, and this is why gold hit a peak in the 1970s. There's a huge run-up due to inflation, due to issues in the Middle East surrounding OPEC, and I think it was a Iraq war or the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. I can't remember exactly, but basically instability in the Middle East and inflation sounds very similar. And I'm not going to get into any of the global politics involving all that stuff. I'm just saying that those two things are present today, and they were present in the 1970s, and those things are attributed to the run-up in gold in the 1970s. And this run-up has something I've never seen gold do, which is in a year go on this crazy trajectory. And really, in the last little bit, it's gone on this crazy trajectory, something gold doesn't do. So that suggests that investors, or I guess the people buying gold, have some sort of fear, exuberance towards gold, but fear towards other things. That's usually what gold is. But then we don't know. The market could have shifted, and now gold isn't a hedge. But given its entire history of being hedge, I can't, you can't necessarily say that it's just a possibility. Now, if I take that with another thing that I used to watch a lot of like cryptocurrency investing videos, especially from 2020 till 2022, the DXY was mentioned a lot of like the Bollinger Bands and this analytic talk, that analytic talk, and then invariably people would talk about the DXY. And it seemed to be as the DXY went down, cryptocurrencies would go up. And as the DXY went up, cryptocurrencies went down. And the DXY hit a peak at the point where the cryptocurrency market crashed in 2022. And it never got to the previous high that it had been at the end of the 90s. Now, what is the DXY? It's basically the comparison of a collection of currencies against the US dollar. And I think it's like the Japanese yen, the Canadian dollar, the British pound, maybe the euro, and I don't know, maybe Swiss currency. I don't know all the currencies compared against, but since COVID, it was sort of climbing. It was going down a bit and then climbing. And as it climbed, then cryptocurrencies and a whole lot of markets crashed as it hit a peak. And since that point, it went on a bit of a decline again. Now it seems to be on a rise again, not back to that even previous high, which isn't as high as the 90s. So the DXY climbing usually means a strengthening of the US dollar, at least in comparison to other currencies. And the climbing of gold usually implies that people are hedging against some sort of fear. And usually they move out of currencies at that point. I mean, it's been move out of the US dollar into gold. But there was this point after 2022 where there was holding cash there was enough interest or profit in the interest on holding cash because of the market conditions of inflation that it was viable. So a lot of people that were investors stayed in cash longer than they normally would have, not to their detriment, probably to their great profit, and then started moving into other investments at some point after 2022. And now, could a lot of it be gold? I don't know. And why is the DXY on the rise again? I mean, could it be the tariffs? I don't know. I actually don't know the answer to any of these questions, but I know that things are changing and the market is changing. And we see a slowdown in, different things within the purview that we talk about here, games, and specifically collectible card games, which have values change over time. And, you see the massive blowout of Spider-Man boxes now down at $450 US, still above distribution costs as far as I know, but much lower than the $1,000 they were at. And it's funny because the DXY is on the rise, and cryptocurrencies normally would be taking a hit at this point in time if they were still correlated, which I don't think they are, because I haven't heard of. I think that the cryptocurrencies in general, or at least Bitcoin, was still stable or moving up, and it has a pretty good outlook. So maybe they've decoupled from the DXY. I don't know. A lot of people want to view cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin specifically as the digital gold, so that could be part of it. And the reason why gold is moving up is because the market has noticed the value of Bitcoin, and they value gold more, and therefore to them gold is mispriced. Maybe that's part of it. But what this means is that something is happening in the market, and something is going to change, and it seems to be dramatic, because gold isn't usually dramatic. Unless it suddenly is. Unless suddenly gold is volatile, which in my lifetime it never was, but it has been in the past if you look at the 1970s. So I don't really know, but I just wanted to talk about it because it's interesting to me, and those things can affect the market for the things that I do talk about. And I just want to know what people think. So let me know in the comments below, and have a good day.